Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be in the Seanad. But before I proceed further, I just want to genuinely express my appreciation to this House for facilitating such an early consideration, and that I've just been given the delightful news that we're going to do committee and report stage next week. So I want to genuinely say I'm very, very grateful.
Well, maybe not next week, but in the fullness of time.
At the earliest convenience we can. So the main reason, I suppose, for seeking a quick passage of this legislation through the Oireachtas is to expedite the commencement of the existing legislation that provides for the registration of donor-assisted births. And the issue particularly affects female sex couples who wish to register the particulars of both partners in the relationship as parents in the register of births. And this will allow both of them to have their particulars displayed on birth certificates and will affirm parental rights for each partner in practical day-to-day matters such as passport applications, school enrolments, interaction with medical practitioners, GPs and other situations where demonstration of parental relationships are often required. And I know that many members of the Oireachtas want a speedy resolution to this because we've all met many couples who are affected, and I can assure the House that I absolutely want this resolved as quickly as possible. As I stated in the Dáil, I think it's worthy to say it again though, we live in a changing society, and thankfully we do, a society with a more diverse range of family formation than we've had even in a relatively recent past, and I think it's important that we reflect this in our laws in how we recognise our new family units. And for my part, I fully intend that civil registration legislation will keep pace with the evolving nature of our society and at its speed, thankfully, and with how this diversity is provided for in legislation generally. And in this way, I think we can absolutely ensure our endeavours, which are to treat all of our citizens equally. The bill, Chair, makes progress in achieving this through technical amendments that will facilitate commencement of the sections in Part 9 of the Children and Family Relationships Act of 2015. And this will make possible the registration and re-registration of donor-assisted births that will record the particulars of both parents in a female same-sex relationship. As many of you may be aware, bringing these provisions into operation also depends on commencement of Parts 2 and 3 of the Children and Family Relationships Act of 2015, which includes the provisions for determining the parentage of donor-conceived children. Although this is the responsibility of my colleague Minister for Health, he is working to commence these parts before our summer recess. The bill also amends existing civil registration legislation to bring it into line with current legislation governing presumption of paternity. And this will make it less onerous on a woman to rebut the automatic presumption of paternity of her estranged husband in the birth registration process. And it's another rights-based issue that I want to see addressed particularly quickly. I want to avoid a situation where there is a need for contact with the woman's estranged husband, where the separation may have been acrimonious or may have even involved domestic violence. So I want to move on now to the provisions setting them out in the individual sections. Section 1 outlines the definitions of certain terms used throughout of the Act. Section 2 amends the definition of the Act of 2015 in Section 2 of the Act of 2004, and the amendment will facilitate commencement of the legislation that provides for re-registration and registration of births of donor-conceived children. Section 3 makes technical amendments to Section 19A of the Act of 2004, and this will facilitate commencement of the legislation that provides for the registration of births of donor-conceived children. Section 4 brings civil registration legislation into line with current legislation governing presumption of paternity, and it makes it less onerous on a mum or a mother to rebut the automatic presumption of paternity of her husband in the birth registration process. Section 5 makes technical amendments to Section 23B of the Act of 2004, which will facilitate commencement of the legislation that provides for the re-registration of births of donor-conceived children. Section 6 provides for the inclusion of a family member as a qualified informant in the registration of a death where a coroner is involved. And this will allow the family of the deceased to have a greater role in the registration process, and it should result in registrations of more complete sets of particulars in some cases. Section 7 provides for the inclusion of the forename and birth surname of a parent, where a person born following donor-assisted human reproduction dies abroad and is sought to have the death recorded on the record of deaths abroad when that is operationalised. And that follows a consequence to the addition of details of parents in the requirement of particulars for the registration with our new birth processes. Section 8 provides for the records of births, deaths and marriages may be shared by the General Register Office, the GRO, with a body under the aegis of the Minister for Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht. And that brings into operation of these provisions will require extensive consultation between my own departments and the colleagues in that department. Section 9 provides for the application fees payable to the Minister for Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht in respect of any performance by that Minister of functions carried out under the provisions amended by Section 8 of this bill, and this is a standard provision in most legislation. Section 10 provides for the inclusions of details of parent in the required particulars to register a birth or a stillbirth. This will facilitate both partners in a same-sex female relationship to have their particulars registered in the Register of Births. Registration of particulars of mother and father will obviously continue to be available. However, any parent may choose to register a birth as a parent if they so wish. Section 10 also provides that the country of birth and the country of citizenship of a deceased person are to be added to the particulars of a death to be entered into the Register of Deaths. And this provision, as well as providing a rich source of data in the records of deaths held by the GRO, it will also respond to the State's obligation under the relevant EU regulations governing provision of statistical data to Eurostat by the Central Statistics Office. Section 11 provides for a technical change to ensure that certain amendments in Section 6.1 of the Civil Registration Amendment Act of 2014 may apply to the registration of births where the birth occurs before the date of commencement of the section and is registered after that date. And there were two amendments introduced into Dáil Éireann that have been adopted and are now included in the bill before us. Section 12 provides that Part 9 of the Children and Family Relationships Act will come into operation by default on the 6th of October 2019 if they haven't already commenced before that date. But as I've said to you, we're keen as mustard to get this passed and in operation before the summer recess so that we can control it. But Section 13, a new section, makes a technical amendment to Section 27.5 of the Children and Family Relationship Act of 2015 that will allow the Minister for Health to commence Parts 2 and 3 and to make the regulations for a certificate to be given to the parents by their fertility clinic. This certificate is required in the birth registration process. As currently enacted, Section 27.5 does not make sufficient provision for the details of all permitted donor assistance procedures to be included in the current certificate, and this amendment will rectify that. And finally, Chair, Section 14 provides for the short title, the construction, collective citation and commencement of the Act. These amendments are mainly technical in nature, but I think it's important that we progress them as quickly as we possibly can, because we all owe it to the people and the lives who are affected by this issue in a very real way and have genuinely been waiting exceptionally patiently, I might say, for a considerable amount of time to have these concerns addressed. So at this stage, I think we allow them to move on and interact in society in a way that the Oireachtas originally intended in 2015 and, to be fair, in a way that most of us actually just take for granted. So I'm aware that there are other areas of civil registration that do need to be addressed and other issues broadly relating to the provisions containing in this bill, but these will have to be dealt with at a separate future date, because I want to address the measures in this bill as quickly as possible. And I genuinely look forward to hearing your views and your comments and enjoy your cooperation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.